And I sort of write about this towards the end of the book because I'm trying to like future cast a little bit and see where, on this trajectory, where do things go? And I think a couple of things, getting back to other countries, I think what is changing, which we're already seeing, is that this is increasingly not just a phenomenon of the Western world. Cats and dogs are huge in Japan, in China, which they've never really been popular pets, apparently. And I read this on the internet, so take it for what it's worth. But apparently, cats are the most popular animal, a pet in urban China now. Which is crazy because hasn't traditionally been a culture that has put a ton of value in these animals. And I realize I'm probably overstating that and again treating China as a monolith. But so I think we'll see what's happened in the U.S. and some of the Western world happening in other countries. But also in the U.S., I don't know if we can get any closer to these animals emotionally. That's almost a little scary to think about because I think we almost sort of maxed that out. And so I think the evolution will be potentially legally. I talked a little bit about how cats and dogs used to be nothing legally, and now they're property. And even when they got this property status, they're still in that status. Some people have a really hard time believing that. They're like, I don't view my cat or dog as a toaster, but legally they're pretty much still kind of toasters. I mean, they, with exceptions. I mean, you wouldn't give a lawyer to a toaster. Dogs aren't getting lawyers left and right. There's only been a few cases, but it has happened. Custody battles aren't being fought over toasters. People are starting to get emotional distress damages for cats and dogs being killed, which you usually reserve for people. You can leave money to your pets now legally, which you didn't. So none of this stuff is true of other types of property. And yet cats and dogs still remain property because either you're nothing, you're property, or you're a person. There's really no gray area as far as the law is concerned. And so the question is, will this change for cats and dogs, as they become more integrated into society and more sort of emotionally and socially part of our lives? One of the people I talked to towards the end of this book is a legal theorist named David Faver. He has this concept called living property, which is this idea that like, we don't have a category, but let's create this category where we could put pets and maybe farm animals or other types of animals in this category where these animals would have some rights, maybe the right to be free from abuse and the right to be cared for, maybe even some rights to some basic, veterinary care or whatever. But we wouldn't have to sort of broach this idea of personhood, legal personhood with these animals. Like we could sort of keep our hands off that because that's very controversial, as I sort of brought up earlier. But this idea that legally we could maybe evolve them into this new status. And so I think that may be an area where we see some changes maybe in the coming decades. But beyond that, unless they're eating the exact same food we're eating and going to the exact same doctors we're going to, it's hard to imagine a whole lot more evolution happening on the social side.